Bosi had always been admired for her grace and poise. A woman of simple background, she never expected her life would change the way it did when she met Mr. Tiyo. A wealthy businessman from a well-respected Yoruba family, Mr. Tiyo exuded charm, intelligence, and ambition. It wasn't long before Bosi, enamored by his generosity and love, found herself standing at the altar, promising her life to this man who seemed to offer her everything. But life was far from perfect. Behind the luxurious cars, the mansion on the hills, and the extravagant trips abroad, something about Mr. Tiyo never quite sat right with Bosi. It wasn't the way he spoke to her or treated her. No, he was always loving, attentive even. It was the subtle things. The long, unexplained nights when he would disappear for hours, leaving only a cryptic message, "Business trip, don't wake up." The whispered phone calls in the dead of night, spoken in a hurried, unfamiliar tone that chilled Bosi to the bone. As the months passed, Bosi couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease. She started to notice inconsistencies, small details that felt wrong. His stories about his past seemed to shift. One day, Mr. Tiyo claimed to have attended a prestigious university in Lagos, but when she pressed him about his classmates or his time there, he would deflect with a joke or change the subject. His family, who lived abroad, rarely visited or even called. When Bosi asked about them, Mr. Tiyo's face would darken, and he would remind her that some things are better left alone. Despite her unease, Bosi couldn't deny the love she felt for him. They had built a life together. Her family adored him, and their friends envied their glamorous lifestyle. From the outside, they seemed the perfect couple, living a dream life that others could only wish for. Yet, deep within her heart, Bosi knew something was amiss. Then came the day that would change everything. It started with a letter. Delivered in a plain white envelope, it bore no name and no return address. Bosi found it slipped under the door one evening while Mr. Tiyo was away on another of his mysterious business trips. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter was brief, only a few sentences, written in neat, hurried handwriting. "He isn't who you think he is. Stop asking questions before it's too late." Bosi's heart raced as she read the note over and over again. Who had sent it? And more importantly, what did it mean? The words echoed in her mind, fueling the doubts that had already been growing. Her curiosity was piqued, but so was her fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that her world was about to unravel. Determined to uncover the truth, Bosi began to dig deeper. She started with his office, searching through documents, files, anything that could explain the mystery that surrounded her husband. But it seemed Mr. Tiyo had anticipated her curiosity. Every drawer was locked, every file neatly filed away behind layers of security. It was as if he had taken great care to leave no trace of his true identity behind. One night, as she sat alone in the vast, empty house, Bosi received an unexpected visitor, an old woman from the neighborhood. She introduced herself as Ayafola, a woman who had lived in the area for decades. There was something about her eyes, wise and knowing, that made Bosi uneasy. "I've seen you," the woman said softly, sitting down uninvited in Bosi's living room. "You're married to Tiyo." "Yes," Bosi replied cautiously, unsure of the old woman's intentions. "I knew his family long ago," Ayafola continued, her voice filled with an ominous tone. "But I'll tell you this. No one knows what really happened to them. They vanished one by one. And Tiyo, he came back with more wealth than anyone could explain." Bosi's heart pounded in her chest. The old woman's words were like pieces of a puzzle, slowly coming together. The secrets, the disappearances, the unexplained wealth, it all pointed to something far darker than she had imagined. But before she could ask more questions, Ayafola stood up abruptly. "Be careful, my child. Curiosity can be dangerous." And with that, she left as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving Bosi with more questions than answers. Over the next few days, Bosi's paranoia grew. She began to notice small changes in Mr. Tiyo's behavior. He seemed more distant, more secretive. His once affectionate gestures became mechanical, almost rehearsed. It was as if he knew she was onto him, and he was playing a part to keep her in the dark. One evening, while Mr. Tiyo was away on another trip, Bosi decided to take a bold step. She hired a private investigator to follow him. It was a risky move, but Bosi had reached a breaking point. She needed to know the truth, whatever it may be. The days that followed were excruciating. Every time the phone rang, her heart leaped in her chest, hoping it was the investigator with news. And then, finally, the call came. "I found something," the investigator said, his voice grim. "But you're not going to like it." Bosi's hands trembled as she listened to the details. Mr. Tiyo had been seen meeting with a group of men known for their ties to criminal organizations. There were whispers of illegal dealings, smuggling, and even darker rumors, things that Bosi could hardly believe. As the truth began to unfold before her, Bosi realized that her husband was living a double life. The man she had married, the man she thought she knew, was not the man standing beside her. There was a darkness in his past, one that he had worked hard to keep hidden. But now, that darkness was creeping into their lives, threatening to destroy everything they had built together. The weight of the secret hung heavy in the air, suffocating her. Bosi knew she had to confront him, but the thought of facing Mr. Tiyo, knowing what she now knew, filled her with dread. What would he say? How would he react? And more importantly, was she safe? The walls of their perfect life were crumbling around her, and Bosi was caught in the middle, unsure of whom to trust or where to turn. The man she loved was a stranger, and the life she had thought was hers was slipping through her fingers like sand. Yet, despite the fear, despite the danger, Bosi couldn't walk away. She needed to know the full truth, no matter how painful it might be. And so, she waited for the moment when Mr. Tiyo would return, and the secrets that had been buried for so long would finally come to light. But deep down, Bosi knew that when the truth was revealed, nothing would ever be the same again.